You're listening to the Intuitive Souls podcast. I am your host, Sarah Caruso, and this podcast is designed to educate, inspire, and enlighten. Let's wake up together. Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. So this week's episode, I sit down with the amazing, super talented Matthew Stapley, who is a psychic medium located in Ottawa, Canada. And we really just we were really low key about, the topic that we wanted to discuss, and we just kind of let it flow through us. Our conversation was just really probably one of the best conversations I've ever had with another spiritual being, because he was so open and honest, and he just kind of allowed his truth to just be told. And same as me, it was just such a great conversation, and his energy is so inspiring, and he's so honest with everything, right? Everyone thinks that when you come into a place of spirituality and you come into your own as a soul, that everything's all rainbows and butterflies. And you're going to hear a little bit more about Matthew's life and, how he came to terms that he's a psychic medium and how well connected he is to spirit. But he also talks about the struggles that he has just being a human being, just dealing with anxiety and dealing with, things that we all deal with on an everyday basis. And it's a really good reminder for anyone who's listening that, just because you come into your spiritual purpose doesn't mean that you're not going to have bad days. You're not going to not struggle with some things. It's about learning from the experiences and not being a victim of it. So like I said before, I really, really enjoyed this conversation. He was just so amazing, and I am just so happy that we connected. And all of his information is going to be in the show notes if you want to check him out. He actually does free live readings every Friday on his Facebook page. So definitely, you'll hear it in the episode. I found him through Facebook, and I watched him, just absolutely kill it with messages from spirit and, connecting with people that have passed over. I was like, I need to have him on the show because he just has such a wonderful energy about him. So I'm just gonna stop because I can talk all day about our conversation because it was that good. But I'm gonna go ahead and just talk about the essential oil and the crystal of the week before we head on over to the interview. So the essential oil of the week I went with is grapefruit, because I've been using grapefruit a lot, and I want to tell you guys a little bit about it. So just like the fruit, just like any other citrus, it is a super stimulating aroma that can improve a gloomy mood quickly. Because it contains plenty of vitamin C, grapefruit essential oil can contribute to a healthy immune system. It's a diuretic. The diuretic properties makes it useful for treating swollen feet and ankles and for clearing out any toxins in the body. You can diffuse a few drops to deal with a headache or a hangover. Again, I always put at least 1 drop in my water of grapefruit a day. You can use like any citrus, but my particular favorite is grapefruit. It's such a good scent. It gets you positive, it gets you happy, it gets you going for the day. Definitely check out grapefruit. And then the crystal I went with is danburite. Now, danburite is like this really pretty light pink color, and it is a highly spiritual stone with a very, very pure vibration, and it works with the heart energy. It activates both the intellect and higher consciousness. I'm so tongue-tied. The higher consciousness linking into the angelic realms. Its brilliance comes from the cosmic light, and danburite is sometimes found with a Buddha formation within the crystal that draws enlightenment and spiritual light. It smooths the path ahead. Wearing Damberite provokes a link to serenity and eternal wisdom. Used in meditation, it takes you to a high state of consciousness and accesses inner guidance. Damberite is an excellent stone for facilitating deep change and for leaving the past behind. It is also a well-known karmic cleanser. So my story with Damberite was I had it for a while and I never meditated with it. It just kind of sat with all my other crystals. And then a couple weeks ago, something just kind of told me to grab it before I went and started meditating. And I really, really liked the experience. It was quite different than like meditating with, quartz or selenite or something along those lines. It had kind of like this feminine energy to it. But yeah, it's a really, really beautiful stone and it's pretty easy to find. So, it's like I said, I really enjoyed meditating with it. And I think it already, the book that I came from said that it's a really good meditation stone as well. So check out Damberite, check out Grapefruit, and let's get to the show. Again, Matthew, if you're listening, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated it, and I know you guys are going to enjoy this show. I'll see you next week. You guys, today I have Matthew Stapley on with us, and I want you guys to just bask in his amazingness, guys. First off, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about him. I don't know where he came from. He came in my live feed one day and it was your free Monday readings. And I have to say, you were killing it. I was like, he is so on fire right now. And I have been watching you for so many months. And I'm just like, you're just so in it. You are just so in it. So guys, Matthew, please tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm so happy that you are finally on the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me here, Erica. It is a real pleasure to be here on your podcast with you. And I want to say thank you very much for reaching out to me. It's been really an exciting week building up to this. This is the kind of thing that I love to do. And I'm just so happy to be here. One of the ways that I started was I think most mediums start is when we're kids, we're absolutely terrified and haunted on sleeping pills at 8 years old because our rooms are full of ghosts, but mostly kidding, half kidding. I think all of us are connected to something much greater than what we can see. I think all of us have this innate divine connection, whether we recognize it as mediumship or we recognize it as the spark of life, with divinity being in touch with every cell in our body. We're always in constant communication with the world around us. And some of us, yourself and people like us, we were born with the ability to hear that communication happening, not just for us, but for other people. It started at a fairly young age with me, around 8 years old. And I think I scared the crap out of my parents is kind of how it started. And after all the psychiatry appointments and everything, then I realized that I was an evidential medium. And I think one of the things that amazes me, and I'm sure it does you as well, is that spirit will stop at nothing to let people know that they're loved. And I know that's kind of a long answer to your question.
Yeah.
What came through it just started to happen.
Yeah. So you're saying that all of this started at 8 years old. For me, I was a little bit different. I was always very sensitive, like super sensitive. But I think that I just shut off that ability very quickly.
And that's a really common thing. When I teach classes and things like that, a lot of the students are middle-aged people that had experiences when they were young and just shut it down, or society shut it down for them. And that's something, that's hard because we're in a society that tells us don't feel. And if you feel, then it's either got to be bad or it's got to be, not any positive way. And so it's very common for people that are gifted to shut it down at a young age. I was lucky. I was born into a family that they didn't know what to do with it, but they knew they shouldn't get rid of it. And I think so many people are in the shoes of having to open it up later. But your energy is fantastic. I mean, I can't even imagine the work that you do that helps to help people. I think you have this vibrancy. And even before we started, we were chatting for a bit and laughing. I think all of those things make a huge difference in day-to-day life for people.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. You know, and like you said, I loved how you said, you know, society has shut it down.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That is the biggest thing when I'm working with my clients, when I'm talking to even my clients as like readings, you know, they're like, oh, you know, I felt that way about this person. Yeah. And it makes me cringe. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's our feelings that is our souls talking to us.
Totally.
You know, and everyone always asks, like, how do I know things? How do I get my intuition? And I always said, I shut off my feelings for 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years. And then it wasn't until I actually always kind of took a step back and I started saying, well, how do I feel about this person? How do I feel about this situation? And I don't even want to say 9 times out of 10, because it's 10 times out of 10, I'm usually right.
Yes.
I'm right.
Yeah.
And that is the problem, is that we live in this society that's like, feelings aren't good, you know?
Yeah. Well, even if you look at it, like in terms of, you know, like the human energy field, you know, it's fairly accepted in the spiritual community. We have chakra points or energy points in the body, and the root chakra balances the crown, the third eye balances the sacral, the throat balances the solar plexus. But then there's the heart, which is kind of self-balancing. You know, it has to maintain the rest of the energy field. It's the center of the entire energy field. And you know, even for that bit of knowledge that we have all accepted in the spiritual community alone, that should show us that our heart is vital to who we are. You know, it's where wisdom comes from. We learn knowledge. We have knowledge of things. We have knowledge of good, bad, of our experiences. But until we know it at a heart level, it's not wisdom yet. You know, our wisdom is our knowledge tempered by the emotional experience of the things that we go through. And I think you're right as well. Society has asked us to remove part of who we are at such a vital level. If we took out our liver or our lungs, we wouldn't be able to live. So why do we think we can live without emotion? This world has expanded and grown in such a profound way, very quickly, especially the last 100 years, I think, with forward movement and bigger is better. And, you know, we've lost this very integral human component of even a hug. I mean, now it's like, you know, it's maybe politically incorrect to show affection or to use words that are from the heart with people, when it's really things that are very acceptable things. It's not like, not in an uncomfortable way. And so, you know, we're being told to sterilize who we are. And if anything, human beings are messy as fuck. We're not sterile. We're not built for sterility. We're built for like a hot mess on wheels experience. And to ask the society to ask us to remove this vital component that makes us good people. I think at the end of the day, our feelings modulate our behavior. It's brutal to have a feelingsectomy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know. Did you ever watch that documentary? It's on Gaia, that it proves that your heart knows something bad is going to happen before it actually happens.
I think that I haven't seen the documentary, but I'm very familiar with the concept.
Yeah.
And I think it's 100% accurate. And I think every person on this planet has that capability. I think, you know, we're all psychic. We're all, you know, even at a mediumship level, we're all receiving something from a different dimension. You know, so yeah, I'm not even surprised that they did a documentary like that. I think it's very accurate. I think when we can get into our heart as well, instead of always being in our mind, then we also, you know, we'll know, yes, if something isn't going to work out or something good or bad is going to happen, but we'll also be able to work with our own thoughts about the way we experience things, or our actions. If we put our heart behind our actions, well, you can't really go wrong, you know? Right.
Oh my gosh. So true. So true. I love how we're talking about the heart, because it's so important. And it's like you said, society has just like dumbed it down so much.
Yeah.
Like, I come from a very, very conservative household where I'm telling you, like, we are Scandinavian cold fish. Like, hugging was not a thing we did.
Yeah.
It's just not what it's not what I know. So when I opened up to spirit, and when I really learned all of this and how we are our feelings and we are our heart, you realize that it's not just your family, but it's everything around us in this earth world that is creating all these problems for us.
Oh, totally. And it's a vicious cycle too, because if you think about it, I'm pretty sure at no point in the history of the world necessarily, but way back in caveman days, did somebody say, you know what I think would be better if we just don't feel anything? I think what happened is the structure that we've created as a society has largely been responsible for this need to not feel. And so we have people being told not to feel, so they don't. And then they go out and they get jobs where feelings are bad. And then they become the manager. And because they saw society run in a successful, quote unquote, way without emotion, then they teach that. And we're all teachers of what we learn. For good or bad, it shows up in our actions. So I think what we could do as a society maybe is at an individual level stand up for our right to feel. And I see it happening. You can see it in the trends, even in social media, where people are done. They're fed up and they're saying, I feel this way and I'm not going to apologize for it. And of course, right now it's that volcanic explosion because all those feelings have been buried. But no, I think you're absolutely right. I think that it's a challenging thing, but I think that we can stop it at any point.
Right. It's really up to us. It
is completely up to us. Yeah. And it's impossible with the world being the way it is to stand up on a mountain with a megaphone saying like, hey guys, you have permission now to be who you are. I think it's going to start at an individual level with people sitting in their feelings. We're also taught pain is bad or anger is negative, or if you send out the wrong thought, you're going to accidentally use the secret and manifest a horrible life for yourself. All of those barriers that we put in front of our happiness as conditions on happiness and success are part of the problem as well. People are so afraid to feel the harder emotions because they equate that to bad things happening or to being out of alignment with the universe. And I think if anything, the universe wants us to go and cry and get angry. And I don't know about you, but I've stuck my middle finger up to the sky probably more than most people I know. Yeah. And I didn't hide it. And I think people are so afraid that they'll be judged either at a physical level by the world or society around them, or at a spiritual level by divinity. And I always say, God gave me a foul mouth and a middle finger. God can handle it when I use those things.
That. I need to start using that. I need to start using that. Yeah, that's definitely, we are so like afraid of like sadness and stuff. Cause I think that like, I don't know. So many people have different reasonings why they like hold it in, right?
Yes, totally.
Sadness, doubt. And it's, for me, that was like what happened.
Yeah, I would love to hear about it.
Oh, it was just so, like I said, like I was brought up that feelings was not a relevant thing. My feelings about someone, my feelings about a situation were not relevant.
Yeah.
It was very analytical, very logical, and I was very quirky. I was empathic. I was a super sensitive kid. I always got my quirks. There were a lot of people that, I just didn't like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
And that's like a problem because I lost friends over things like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because they liked someone and I didn't.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Even if we don't like somebody, it doesn't even mean that they're shitty or bad vibes or whatever. They're just not good for us.
That's exactly what I say. It's just like my energy doesn't go with theirs.
Yeah. I think if we can get society to for everyone to feel that it's okay to have their own boundaries, I think there's going to be less people losing friendships over it, because if it was widely accepted, then you could say, hey, I don't really like Susie Q over there, and it's not that she's a bad person, it's that something about her makes me feel weird. And then so your friend would be like, oh, well, I don't like John over there, and you guys are like, cool, we won't hang out with him together then. We'll do our own thing.
Right.
I think that we often judge ourselves as well in that process. And on the spiritual path, there's a huge amount of unlearning that we all go through, and it can be hard. The unlearning, I think, is even harder than the learning, because when we learn something, it becomes cemented until we decide we're going to excavate the entire thing.
Right.
And that's why I always say spiritual path is not the easy path. It's not even the comfortable path. It is the path of sometimes brutal forward movement, at the expense of sometimes almost everything. When we decide we are going to kneel down before the universe and say, I give you me, you know, we're really saying, if we made that into an analogy of a house, it's like going out on the street and saying, okay, contractors, come on, here's my key. I'm going to do my best to sit here. Will you tear down the house around me? And I will promise I will do my best to like it the way that you rebuild it. And that's a lot of the times what our spiritual path starts out to be.
That's one thing when I really opened up to spirit, that just like I talk a lot about spiritual awakenings, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever see that meme where it's like the girl in the meadow where a spiritual...
Oh, yeah, and the other picture...
Yeah, and then the other one's like in the
crying,
and I'm like, it's not what you think it is. It's not yoga on the beach. It's where you have to go through your life.
Yes.
You go through everything that you have learned, all of the instances, the relationships, the heartaches, and you try to find
the
what was taught.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Why did you go through these things? Why do you keep on choosing the wrong people for yourself?
Yeah.
You know, shadow work is brutal.
Oh my God. I started my shadow journey 3.5. It was like just after, end of 2015, beginning of 2016, my life fell apart. I mean, life as I had hoped it would be was obliterated, I think is probably the right word.
Mm-hmm.
Like right down to the point where I was so depressed that I was like, I wasn't canceling with clients. I was not showing up, like, which is totally different than canceling.
Right.
And it was a very dark time. And then I was also experiencing this battling between, do I tell people how hard this is, how hard all these things are, or do I just try and put a smile on my face? And I ended up crashing. It was on my way to a group reading, and a friend of mine was driving with me there. And my anxiety was really, really bad at the time. And so I went early just to try to get used to that area of town and all of that, because at the time I had bad agoraphobia. And halfway through being there for 5 minutes, I guess I was there for like 2.5 minutes, she looked at me and said, Matthew, this isn't worth it. She's like, you're not going to go and do a good job. The money doesn't matter to you anyway. Like, this isn't worth your time, and it's not worth this struggle that you're going through. And I remember getting in the car, and she got in the driver's seat, and we started driving home, and the tears were like rushing down my face. And I went home, and I picked up some prayer beads, and I did some prayers before bed, and I woke up the next morning with this feeling that all of that stuff wasn't as important as understanding what I was going through. And it started a shadow journey that was, as you've been through, brutal for 3 years. And I saw shamans and witch doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists and holy people. And I watched Eat, Pray, Love like 5,000 times and still couldn't eat, pray, or love. And I went through all of those things. And then I decided towards the end of that wrapping up that I would use all of that. And I would try to get that information out to other people to help them to realize that feeling crappy is okay, that going through hell is okay, and that nowhere on earth in your contract of being here does it say life will be good. It doesn't say life will be fair either, but what it does say is that we have a responsibility to our soul to learn what we're going to learn. And so, yeah. I don't know why I just went on like a 20-minute rant.
Because it's, and I like that you did that because honestly, they also, a lot of people, I feel like because you're a spiritual entrepreneur, right? Yeah. They think that like, we don't have bad days.
Oh, we have so bad days. Like everybody. Yeah. I think, and I realized a few years ago, or in the last, maybe more so in the last year and a half, that people owe it, like I owe it to people for them to know that. And the reason why is for the first part of my career, from like 17 to 28, I felt like I had to look perfect, be perfect, act perfect, have all of my shit neatly packaged and sterile, basically. I thought that I had to have this perfect sense. And so there was a long time where I didn't try on purpose to portray it, but I kept my mouth shut about a lot of things. And then 2014 happened. And in 2014, I was ordained after almost 5 years or so of training to be a minister. And I realized that I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I didn't. And then my stole was put on me, and I just thought, like, I don't know the first thing about being a minister, which is weird because 5 seconds ago I thought I knew everything about being a minister. And then a few months later, I did my first sermon as an ordained minister, and it was on Mother's Day. And I ended up standing at the front, and I had my sermon all written and ready to go because as students we had to write them so we could hand them in. And I just felt so wrong about the whole thing. Not felt wrong about being a minister, but I felt wrong about having this perfectly written whatever that's supposed to be planned inspiration, I guess we could call it, planned inspiration. And then I had all these people in front of me. Most of them were older than me. I might even be one of the youngest people in the room, and I was the minister in the room. And I realized how wrong that felt. And I realized that they were looking at me, some of them were at least, were looking at me because they felt I knew God more than they did or something. And I thought that was wrong. So I ripped up my sermon and I went away from the pulpit and I stood at the level of the congregation. And I said, I will never stand up there. And the reason why is I don't know God any better than anybody else does. I might know history and theology because I had to study it and write a bajillion essays and all of that. But the core of why we're here is divinity, and I don't know the divine any better. And what I didn't realize at that time was that actually set me free completely from having to apologize for who I was. It let me be human. It let me talk about my own issues that I had in the past with addiction and heartbreak and trauma and all of that. And I realized over time that I owe it to the people that look to me for help. I owe it to them to be transparent, to show that life is not perfect. I will sit there and chain smoke and swear with you because I'm just as pissed off about whatever happened to both of us today as you are. Yeah. And I found in that process, I was nervous about it because I thought people are going to think I'm crazy and they're not going to like this. And it was the exact opposite. People appreciated the realness of it. They appreciated that we're all humans. And so I took that opportunity and have ever since put my shit on out there online. I've hung my dirty laundry on the clotheslines as often as I can because I think we all have dirty laundry. So why not do a laundry party in the backyard and wash out our stains together, or love our stains, or take a black marker and make cool shapes with our stains on our dirty clothes.
Oh my God, that's like 500. I cannot agree with you more because I have learned in my business is like, you can sit here and you can have all the beautiful pictures and you can have this like perfectly manicured Facebook and all of this. Do you know how much engagement I get when I am so vulnerable?
All of it.
All of it. Know what I mean?
Yeah. But that shows you what people resonate with. People need the realness of it. If we all pretend to be perfect, which nobody ever is, nobody will ever be, but if we portray this image of perfection, not only are we lying to people about what they can achieve as human beings, because none of us can, but we're also not meeting them where they're at. And I think you're the same way. Like, we get down in the trenches with people. Like, we get to where they're at. And it may just be like one step over in the trench to where we already are that day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are lots of times where when I go on and do a live, I was like having a nervous breakdown 10 minutes before I hit go live. Like, you know, there's lots of times where that's happened. And, you know, it doesn't stop me from realizing that somebody else out there is going to benefit from knowing they aren't alone. I think going back to the society we've created to be emotionless and sterile, it's created a huge sense of isolation. But if you look back in further history, let's talk about like the Red Tent. It's also a book, but it was also a thing where when women were having their menstruation, they lived together within their own small community and they cared for each other. Those women were also the midwives. They were also the people who nurtured the community. These women were fierce people. They were warriors of deep things, you know, like all women are, you know, and they had this setup that worked for them. They were allowed to feel these things. And when we go into any kind of a cave of emotion and we emerge from it stronger, we can only help people with that. I don't know anybody who's healed themselves and said, now I'm going to be an asshole. Right. What I've seen is people heal and come out and say, wow, I'm going to go and hug assholes because they need it.
Yeah.
They need it.
Yeah. And another thing with shadow work is like, it comes in waves.
Oh yeah. Yes.
You could be, can be something that comes up and it just beats you down and you can have to really live with that for days, weeks or whatever and really go through the motions and then you're good. And then this is how shadow work happens with me.
Yes, it's the same with me.
Totally get it. And it comes out of nowhere, like absolute nowhere.
Yeah. Or have you ever had it happen where it comes on a good day and you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, today's going to be amazing. The sun is shining. And then boom.
Yeah, that happens. That definitely happens. And what I try to tell people, especially my clients, is that it shows up when you're ready to heal it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
It shows up when you're strong enough to sit there and observe it and not be the victim of it. And
exactly.
It's so easy. Like we can't block it. We just can't block it. It sucks.
It does. It's hard. It's brutally hard.
It sucks so bad, but it's like, imagine blocking it out and then it coming back.
Yeah.
How much harder it's going to be.
Oh, totally. And I think it'll come back as many times as it needs to until we acknowledge it. I don't know about you, but I dated a whole whack of men that were really just the same asshole in different bodies. So I had to go into that and that was brutal. During the time where I was single back in the day, I would meet these men. I'd be like, wow, they look like they have the kind of problems I'm attracted to. How perfect. And then I would get my heart broken.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, it's definitely like, I see so many people like living their life and it's like they go through one relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And then they go into the next relationship and it's the same problems.
Oh, totally. Because what I didn't ask myself is, what did my problems want from their problems? Really, I used to say, wow, these are the kind of problems I'm attracted to. And it took me a long time to say, well, what do my problems like about that? What are my problems craving from this person? And that was a hard look at the self. That was an honesty in front of the mirror moment that I knew was coming for a long time. I used to be attracted to very tough guys, very tough men. Now I have a gentle giant, and we've been together for quite a while. We live together. He's amazing. He's the opposite of rough and tough. He's fierce, but he's not rough and tough. And I had to heal myself to get to him, to allow myself to be very loved by somebody, right. Rather than just controlled or whatever the thing was before.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the final exam moments where you're like, okay, I've healed it, and you actually feel like you have, and then boom, the situation all the way back in your face, and you're like, okay.
There was actually, oh my gosh, good story about this. I went to the Journey of Souls conference in Boston in last October, and awesome. Brian Weiss was there.
Nice.
And he did a hypnosis on the whole 1,000 people in the audience, right?
Yeah.
And we got into this state where something from our childhood came up. And this is in an auditorium with 1,000 people, mind you. We're all eyes are closed, and something came up from my childhood. And as soon as I saw it in my mind's eye, I was like, no, I thought I healed it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And that's the one day I'm not wearing waterproof mascara.
Oh no.
So I am like, I saw it coming, and I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like, no, not this one, not this one, not this one.
Oh no. There's
It was horrible.
That would be brutal. That would be super hard.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in our healing journey, it's almost like, like those boats that take people out into the water for like the tours, and there's a person saying, and look out your left window, there's the bay of whatever. Sometimes I think the universe is more like taking all of the people that are normal and putting them on this boat and driving them past us, and they're like, oh, look to the left, here's a nervous breakdown happening in the through the tides of broken expectations to our left here. But I think one of the things that we can all realize, because I think we all feel that way when we lose our shit for a moment, we all feel like, oh my God, the whole world is seeing this. And what we often forget in that is the whole world might be seeing it, but the whole world is probably already going through it themselves. In your case, everybody, this thousands of people were doing the same thing. They were all searching for this thing to come up. And so the beautiful side of that is we can see and find other people in our environment that are also going through that. When I was 17, I went to an alternative school for a year, and I wrote about this the other day on my page, I think. And there was a native and Aboriginal teacher, and I decided to take the law course, which is really self-study, but then you'd have these interactions with the teacher. And I ended up talking to him one day, talking about the body, mind, spirit thing. And he said, in my culture, we add the word community on the end of that. So it's body, mind, spirit, community. And I thought at the time, like, I know this is important and I know I'll understand it later. But the more that I've done this work, the more I've seen, even when I'm doing message work in a live or in person, and people that don't even know each other are supporting each other through their grieving or their pain. And I realized, like, these people are probably on other sides of the world. They've never met before. They've never talked to each other. But one of them has told a component of their story, and it hit something in the non-sterile heart of another person. And that has allowed them to come forward and support that individual through what they're going through. They don't know each other. They haven't gone through the same thing. But what they recognize is that I feel a heart opening to this individual. Our society may have tried to block emotions and become a sterile place, but when we give people permission to be emotional in a certain space, it happens, and it's beautiful. And what you went through is a very good example of how phenomenal that is, because I bet you went right after that and worked on all of that stuff that came through.
Believe it or not, it was like, that was a long drive home.
Yes.
Because I'm in Connecticut, and it was about a 3-hour drive home.
That's a good drive.
And that was a drive. And it was like a long, just one highway the whole time.
Oh man.
So it wasn't even like, it was a drive, and it really allowed me to heal it.
Oh, totally. And there's something so healing about that kind of thing. Like, I totally understand that. Even I used to go out and drive just so I could bawl my eyes out to the music I liked in the background. It's like, I totally get it. But I think people are slowly giving themselves permission to do these things. I think at some point, we'll realize as a society that we built this, we can take it down.
Right.
And it is happening. You can see that even politically in your country or in my province and country at the moment. People are infuriated with what's been chosen for them. And so, we're all realizing, hey, like, this system is not just broken, it's sick. It's ill.
Terminally ill. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think one by one, people are starting to say, I don't think I really buy into this whole, like, living this way anymore. And people are starting to come to people like you who can coach them out of that stuff, or people like me who ramble and people like it.
You can ramble all day long. I am like, you were like talking about alternative schools, honey. I went to like 2 alternative schools. I'm like, is he like me from Canada? Oh my God.
It sounds like it. That's
sure. Seriously. And then you driving and listening to music. I have to do that now. Like, when I have to get away from my children or something like that. I have to, like, and my husband knows, because I get energy overload.
Yes.
And that's, it's not anxiety. And that's like what I try to tell people is that like when you're empathic, when you're a highly sensitive person,
yes,
it looks like anxiety.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you might have anxiety, but it's actually energy overload.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And it can feel like anxiety, I think, but I think the difference is what causes it.
Yes.
You know, like the feelings can be the same level of overwhelming, but if it's energetic overload, that's coming from outside of you. It's not coming from like the skeletons rattling in your subconscious closet.
Right.
You know, it's coming from the world. So many people need your help because so many people experience that at a huge level. I'm lucky I'm not an empath. I'm fucking blessed. And I live with an empath, and she's amazing. Our roommate's an empath. She's amazing. And I've seen her empathic moments in a bar, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm so happy that I don't have that. So I think the world needs seasoned empaths like yourself. To go out there and teach people how to sit in those moments. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. And you really do. It's so important if you know someone that's sensitive.
Yeah.
Because you can see it. Like when I walk into a room, I could see, like, I just know who's a sponge.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
And I just feel like it's so important to talk about this.
Oh yeah, it is.
Like,
and
you're
it's
not crazy.
No.
You're just a sponge.
Exactly. And you're a sponge that happens to like to soak up razor blades. Like it's not your fault. No, it's so true. Like it's totally true. I think people are talking about it though, and that's the beautiful thing. You know, if you search empath on Google, you're gonna get like 50 pages. I bet when the internet was invented, you could search empath and you would get sympathetic, which is completely different. Or you get empathetic, which is different than empathic.
Right.
So I think it's so vital that all of these components are coming to the surface so that people can embrace who they are for all their weird shit. I mean, I'm just waiting for the day where I have to say like, oh, sorry, I'm, not on time, guys, but my nervous breakdown was running late this morning.
Oh my God.
I apologize. I'm not here when I said I would be. And that everyone's cool with it. Waiting for the day where that happens. But the way to get there is really to create that society for ourselves. We build communities like your community that you're working with and the community that I'm working with and all the people like us. We're giving people permission to just be as they are, to not apologize for the fact that they just pulled a Britney and shaved their hair off in like a live video or whatever.
Right.
We're embracing our crazy, only to realize that A, we're never as crazy as we think we are, and B, that's also okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That's that's like my biggest thing is like, I sit here and like, I've done so much inner healing and I've done so much self-work that I understand that there's still a stigma around it. There's still a stigma about airing too much out. Like, how much is too much?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it comes to the point where it's like, if you air out your dirty laundry, and maybe it's a little negative, right?
Yeah.
But if it helps one person, you did your job.
Oh, totally.
You
know the song "Mama's Broken Heart" by Miranda Lambert? Have you ever heard that song?
No, but now I need to like.
You have to look that song up. It is basically about a woman who was treated really shitty by her husband or boyfriend or whatever, and it's the whole song is her basically giving herself permission to lose her shit about it. But then the chorus is like her mom's words, basically saying, "Oh no, like put your makeup on, put a smile on. No one needs to see this level of whatever's going on because we have to be perfect."
Oh.
And so I think that is something that is slowly breaking, and we're all working hard to let people know that like you can be crazy. We don't have to apologize for who we are unless we hurt somebody with who we are. And we can be emotionally expressive even when we're angry and still not hurt somebody with it.
Right.
We can be enraged. I mean, I've totally thrown shit across my living room, but I asked my roommate to step out of the way first. because there's no sense in perpetuating pain, but we can't hold on to it. We have to
Right.
express it. I know in the spiritual community for many years there was this, don't be negative, quote unquote negative, don't be angry. Angry is a low vibration. It is, and we need it as well. If we try to be in love and light all the time, then all that happens in our human selves, we become a pressure cooker of all the broken things that happened to us, or the broken dreams, the expectations that we lost. If we anesthetize ourselves to be passive to everything, then we're actually not doing the work we're supposed to do either. If we allow ourselves to be passive to people being shitty to us because it's the higher road, then we're actually not any further ahead in our journey, and neither are they. Neither are they. So it's really about how we do the human thing rather than what is the human thing.
Right. And human life is hard.
Oh yeah.
It's hard. These emotions that we feel, the whole spectrum of emotions, whether it be good or bad, we have to feel all of them, unfortunately, at one point in our life.
Or fortunately.
Right. Or fortunately.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing when you're on the spiritual path, is what I realized. It's not all love and light.
No.
It's not all love and light. It's learning to be mature enough and open enough to understand that anger, fear, resentment, whatever those negative emotions are, you have to feel them, but you cannot become them.
Exactly. And that's that part, like, as we talked about earlier, we all become teachers of what we experience. And if we embrace only the pain of it, then we're going to go out and do the same thing that was done to us to everybody. And we're going to teach shitty lessons that are hard to learn as narcissists or whatever. If we take the pain and we sit with it long enough to transform it into something, then we're going to go out there and we're going to find all the other people that have been shafted in some way. And we're going to help them to stitch their hearts up, or to put bandages on their heads, or whatever. We're going to help them to fix their thoughts or whatever. And you're so right about that. If we sit in it forever, then we just become that. We become that person. So I think maybe that the balance there is to sit in it long enough to process it, to transform it, to understand what it's useful for. And when we can kind of lock that in, then it no longer has to hurt us either. When I was in my late teens, I asked Spirit, why? I think I said, why the G damn F, blah, blah, and so on, are these things so painful? Like, why? And they said, and I said, why won't this, insert 20 swear words here, stop now? And Spirit came to me and they said, well, all of the things that everyone experiences has a lesson within it. If you look at the lesson as a letter and the experience as an envelope, you're going to hold on to that envelope forever until you read the letter. How often do we read a letter and then keep the envelope? Pretty much never. Sometimes we do, if it's a nice envelope and we like it, or it's sentimental, so we want to hang on to it, and that's cool. But if it's like a tax bill or an audit thing, are we really going to hold on to that envelope forever? No, we're going to read it, we're going to reply to it, and we're going to throw that stupid thing out. But if we don't read a letter, if we just open it, pull it out and say, oh, you know what, I'll just look at this later because this is intense, and we stick it back in the envelope, usually that's what people do, where they keep the envelope until they've used whatever is on that paper. When we learn from our experiences, the envelope is no longer necessary. Not only is it not necessary to hold on to it, but it's also it's not even useful anymore. We know that envelope. We know what was inside it. We've done our things with it. We can throw the whole thing out. We can recycle it. We can wallpaper with it. It doesn't matter. But we don't have to hang on to it in the same way. Our experiences are only painful until we've learned something from it. If we understand that once we know something, it can't hurt us anymore. Once we've sat in every dark corner of an experience and seen all the light corners as well, those dark corners are no longer scary. Things are only terrifying when we don't know what's there. It's only terrifying when we haven't figured out a way to sit on the bed of nails yet. when we are looking at the hot coals we're going to walk over and being terrified of it, only to find out when we jump in that, yeah, it's a little warm, it's not comfortable, but it's not going to kill us. Our ego stops us from wanting to become healed as people, because our ego, its job, and it's a beautiful job, and thank God we all have it, is to maintain the current state of being. It views any change as death. And so this part of us creates this fear of going into the shadow because we may come out as a different person. And that ego is also what provokes that anxiety right before we heal something. I don't know about you, but when I've done healing work on people, and sometimes it's emotional and sometimes it's been physical back in the day when I did physical healing work, people would have this horrible breakdown and overwhelming response of anxiety right the moment before they let it go. The moment before it cleared was the moment they felt it the most intensely. And it was the coolest thing. And I think that is the death of the ego in that moment, in the moment where we're surrendering ourselves to who we're going to become after all of that. That's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary. That's the moment in the auditorium where you're seeing the vision of hearing and you're saying, oh God, not today. Like, not this one. Pick a different trauma, please.
Yeah.
Pick a different trauma.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. I was like, no, get it back, take it back, take it back, take it back, take it back. Give me an easier one. Like, you know, and that's what I try to, like, that's the biggest thing is the shadow work, the memories, the heartbreak. It's going to come when it's ready.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And you just have to do it.
Oh yeah. And it's not an easy thing to do. Jumping into that swimming pool of lava is not easy. But I think what we realize in that moment is, yes, we might be jumping into a swimming pool of lava and we don't know how hot it is or if there's rocks or if it's going to kill us instantly. But every single time we emerge as a flame, it doesn't matter if we burn completely. We're still on fire. We're still a flame. We're still of the light. We're still shining, you know, and for as long as we're meant to be. And so if we approach a healing experience as either this is going to kill me or it's going to help me, or it's going to help me and it's going to feel like it's killing me the whole time, at the end of the day, we can only do our very best to be the best that we can be. And in that process, there's a million death periods. There's a million times where we feel that what we're going through is so bad, we're not going to survive it for another 5 minutes. But if you've lived up to now, you've survived a lot of those. And there's only going to be one thing in your whole life that's going to kill you. Only one. So everything outside of that is, you can work with it. You can work around it. You can experience something that is so heart obliterating. I don't even want to use heartbreak, because I think a lot of the hard things are heartbreak is like a nice cutesy way to say it. Heart obliteration, extraction, decomposition maybe is a good word. You know, all of that pain, whatever we ascribe to it as a name, it all helps us to emerge as something greater, and all of it can be used for something.
Oh yes. Oh God, you are just like, so wise, so freaking wise.
Thank you. It was the trauma. It was the trauma.
Hey, but listen, at least you know that you learned from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think we all do. I think every person who will ever listen to this podcast is either going through something now, they've been through something, they're about to go through something maybe. I hope they don't have to, because that would suck. But if they do, as we all do, you know, I think what they can take from all the things that we've talked about is that nothing's ever truly terminal. It's okay to feel. It's okay to be who you are. You don't have to apologize for crying. You can have a nervous breakdown in front of the tour ship, and all of it's cool, because somebody on that ship is watching, saying, I'm not as perfect as everyone around me. And the person next to them is saying, wow, I hope nobody notices this huge scar on my heart. And then the person across them is saying, wow, well, I just got out of the psych ward and now I'm on this tour ship watching someone else have a nervous breakdown. I hope they don't notice. And what we could shift with all of that is just, let's all do it together. Let's all figure this out together.
Right. We all have our shit.
Oh yeah, totally. And you know what? We could put glitter on it all day long, or we can hide it. It's up to us. You know, really.
Exactly. It's coming to the point where it's like heartbreak, whatever you're dealing with, whatever it is, it's here. You know, you can't hide it.
No.
You can't put it away. Learn from it, you know, embrace it.
You're so right about that. There was one time during that, as I was barreling downhill on fire towards the lava pit that I was trying so hard not to fling myself into, which was really just the shadow journey. I was at a restaurant, and I was sitting at kind of like this bar. They didn't even serve alcohol, but it was kind of like a breakfast bar thing, right? And I was sitting there, and there was a girl sitting down next to me, and I was in a really dark place in my life. In fact, there was a moment where I thought I was becoming evil because I just didn't give a shit about anything. And she was so bubbly and happy, and I was so jealous of that I said something to her. I don't remember what it was, but it was brutally shitty in a roundabout condescending way. And I remember the feeling of that because I had tears behind my eyes because of my own pain. And here I was, being a jerk to someone. You know, I think sometimes we're in so much pain that we feel like we can't hold on to it by ourselves. So we try to give it to other people because it's so heavy. And I remember that. I remember how brutal that felt, not just because I was in my own pain, but because I was passing that on to somebody that didn't deserve it. I mean, he's this bright, bubbly, awesome human being who's not having a bad day, bless them for it, next to me, who's a swirling black hole of misery in that moment. And, you know, I never forgot what that felt like. I never forgot what it was like to be shitty on purpose, just to be a jerk because I was in pain. And after that, I realized that anytime somebody's an asshole, it's not for no reason. Nobody comes into this world being like, how can I screw this up? You know, how can I hurt people today? It all comes from our own stuff, all of it. I forget what point I was going to try and make with that, but
no,
someone
needed to hear it. Someone needed to hear it. So, Matthew.
Yes.
For anyone who is listening that is having problems with shadow work, having problems facing fears, having problems taking the skeletons out of the closet, what are 3 words of advice you would give them?
Oh man, 3 words. I don't think I've ever tried to say just 3 words before, but I'll give it my best.
You don't need to do 3 words, but like
okay. All right. I thought this was like a challenge. I think the first one is to accept that you're going through something and it's okay. Accept that everyone around you that you're afraid to show that you're having a hard time is also either going through a hard time or they have recently come out of one, because things are cyclical in life and nobody has one perfect year even, usually. You know, we all have our moments. So understanding that you don't have to hide it would be the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice would be to sit with it. Crawl into the closet. Crawl into the closet with your skeletons. Have tea with them. Have coffee. Have all the things that you judge yourself for eating, like whatever. But get down in there and realize that these skeletons are your friends. They were your friends at one time, at least. And so now it's time to revisit them, to take those bones and haul them out onto the front lawn. Look at them, hold them, look at the cracks in them and see where that identifies with the scars in you. And realize that all of this, whether the trauma was from a person, an experience, or a combination of the two, or from yourself even, that at some point in this, there was something good, beneficial. It started out in either on your part or the other person's part, or the experience's part, to be something that was supposed to be positive. And even though it ended in a shitty way, does not mean that there wasn't something good within it. So looking at that and not feeling guilty about the grieving that you have. I mean, I had to walk away from somebody who treated me like crap, and I missed them a lot. I mean, it was a terrible situation, but I missed them. And I had to be okay with that before I could move on from it. So realizing that sometimes we miss the pain that we're letting go of. And sometimes we just have to be okay with that. And so that would be the second piece of advice. And the third piece of advice would be to not be afraid to ask for help. Ask for help from the people that you trust, from the universe. And if I could add one quick fourth piece of advice, it would be to trust that the universe wasn't created to give you a shitty life. It wasn't conspiring to harm you. It was conspiring to teach you. And our spirit guide's job is not to prevent harmful things from happening. It's for them, their job is to help us to maximize on our learning potential in whatever we experience. And so taking all of these things, we can navigate almost anything that comes to our path. And it's okay to have run away from it 1,000 times before you finally sit with those skeletons. It's totally acceptable. It's up to each person.
But unfortunately, it's not going to go away.
No, it will not.
Yeah, when you're ready, but
yes,
it's not going to be a disappearing act.
No. Yeah. And I think that's what society tries to create, is the disappearing act. But no, you're right, it won't. But we can run from things until we're ready, as you've said, to not run anymore. And I think more and more people are getting there, thankfully.
Yeah, I do too. Slowly.
Yes. Slowly.
But I see it. I do definitely see it. And I love how you said, like, your guides aren't here to give you everything.
No.
Some people think that it's like, well, my guides, why didn't they give me the house I wanted? It's not that. It doesn't work that way, girl. It doesn't.
No, exactly.
You have a lot to learn, and they're just here to push you to the places and to the people that are going to help you get your stuff done.
Totally, because those same people in that same moment, their guides conspired to bring them to you because there's also something that they need from you as well. Right. I mean, nothing in this world is one-sided, that is for sure. Everything we look at, from the law of karma to the way we have to buy something at the store, nothing is without balance. And so, you've given me this amazing opportunity today to talk and ramble about all these things I'm passionate about, and I've learned some beautiful things from you. Everything is balanced, and hopefully we'll go on to help other people with our discussion. And even if it, in like some time capsule buried under the earth 5,000 years from now, someone finds this old weird CD of us talking, but they're going through shit, God bless them. Hopefully it's helpful.
I know. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome.
Check out Matthew Stapley on Facebook. He goes live every Monday, right?
Yes.
At 7 p.m. Eastern Standard?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And all of his information is going to be in the show notes for you guys. It's been a pleasure. Matthew, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.